Hey, friends. This is Martine Williams, and I am obsessed with all things mompreneur life and helping you to remix your priorities, your habits, your mindsets, and yes, even your relationships so that you can build a successful business without losing yourself in the process. I'm also obsessed with the color turquoise and lyrics of the 80s and 90s, but that's beside the point. Girlfriend, you don't have to hustle 24/7, 365 and continue to sacrifice your health, your relationships, and your sanity to be a successful mompreneur. As a small town girl living in a lonely world to a six-figure mompreneur, I am here to teach you how. There is a better way, and this podcast is your one-stop shop for all of the how-tos, the encouragement, the life hacks, the success tips, and of course, a little side of tough love. This is the Mompreneur Life Remixed podcast. So let's do this. Well, happy Thursday, friends. Well, that is if you're listening to it on the actual day that it drops. But I'm super excited for my guest today, Erin Port. Erin's mission is to equip busy and overwhelmed moms with practical tips and solutions for simplifying the cumbersome aspects of life management. That's a lot. But she is amazing. And I know many of you are like, yes, I need more of Erin's in my life. When you simplify those areas, you create space to enjoy what truly matters. Leading by example with spunky authenticity, she serves as a source of inspiration to thousands. I love following her on Instagram. She has appeared on shows such as Magnolia Network's Family Dinner with Andrew Zimmerman and Hallmark's Real Connections commercials, and her work has been featured on prominent websites, including The Pioneer Woman and Money Saving Mom. In 2018, Erin launched Simple Purposeful Living, and in November 2018, launched her line of paper products. Among her best-selling items is the 52-week meal planner. Y'all, you need to go check that out. If you're like me and you don't love to cook, she keeps it super simple. It's available on Amazon and her website, which has helped tens of thousands of busy families simplify mealtime. She has also released the Brain Dump Notepad, a strategic tool for organizing your thoughts and creating a purposeful roadmap. Additionally, Erin has self-published 2 cookbooks. Erin is a biological and adoptive mother of 4, happily married to her college sweetheart, Scott, for 17 years, and they reside in Polk City, a small town near Des Moines, Iowa. This is a really great conversation, and I just really appreciate the work that she's doing to help simplify life for all of us as mompreneurs. And so I know you're going to love this episode. So let's jump right in, friends. Well, welcome back, friends, to the Mompreneur Life Remix podcast. I'm your host, Martine Williams. I'm your CEO, your Chief Encouragement Officer, and I am so excited about today's guest, Erin Port, to come on and share with us all about simple, purposeful living. We were talking right before I hit record, and I don't know anyone or any mompreneur who does not desire to have that. So thank you so much for taking the time to come on the show and just share your life, your journey, and some helpful tips for our listeners.
I am delighted, and I hope it's an encouragement to other mompreneurs because we all need a little more encouragement in our life.
We do. We're so tough on ourselves.
We sure are.
We have such high expectations of ourselves. I tell people all the time, like it's more of what we put on ourselves, way more than what other people are putting on us 9 times out of 10. You know, we have these expectations of what mompreneur life is supposed to look like. And it's by women like you who are willing to come on and kind of share their story that really helps us to see, okay, I'm not alone and I'm not crazy, right?
That's so true. Yes, we need that reminder sometimes because we put so much of pressure on ourselves to do it just right, do it a certain way. And honestly, I think so much of my life has been learning as I go, trial by fire. I feel like sometimes I'm drinking out of a fire hose. I can't keep up. But I'm kind of an adrenaline junkie a little bit in that way. So, and maybe that's why we got into what we got into.
That's right. It takes a special breed to be an entrepreneur. It really does.
Yes.
So for those that are listening that don't know about you or your business or your background, and I'm just kind of learning about you too, can you share just a little about you, your family, and how or why you became a mompreneur?
Well, so I'm Erin Port. I live in a small town outside of the capital of the state of Iowa, and I am a wife. We've been married 17 years, a mom to four. I have a son who's 14, a daughter's 12. My other daughter is 8, and our youngest is 6. I'm a biological and adoptive mom. My background is in teaching. I was a first grade teacher, got my administrative degree, and went into becoming administrator in public schools and realized very quickly that it was a lot of politics. I spent a lot of time before school and after school helping other families while neglecting my own family. And so decided to lay that hat down and stay home, but had this desire to continue to teach, learned a lot about families and life, and really had a passion for moms. I blogged that whole time. I've been blogging since 2009. And realized that I could maybe make this into something. But at that time, when I started thinking about blogging, it was back in the days where you were either a fashion blogger or a food blogger. And that really wasn't my passion. My passion was really helping simplify life.
Right.
I had a death in the family when I was in college, and it really transformed my idea of like, we only get one life and I want to live it on purpose because none of us are guaranteed a certain number of days. And so Simple Purposeful Living was born in 2018. I always say I was an accidental entrepreneur, but at the same time, I remember doing things as a kid. If I look back, I always had this desire to be a leader and be just help others. And so that all kind of combines into Simple Purpose Living. My greatest passion is to see lives transformed. Those DMs, those emails that I get every single week, that they take a little tip, a little tweak, and they change their life. And that it really motivates me.
Yeah, it's what brings you to your desk, right? It just on those days when, I think people see entrepreneurship sometimes and they think, oh, that's so easy. They get to work from home in their PJs and all of those things, when some of that is true, but it's really hard. And there are days where you're like, is what I'm doing even matter, right? Is it really helping people? So when you get those little DMs, those little God winks when people are saying that was the most amazing thing, when to you, it's probably like, it's just what I do. It's just normal. But for someone else, it was life-giving and life-changing. And I think that's just really important and really awesome that you took that passion and have put it into a business that's helping other people. So that's awesome. So there's always a mess before the success when it comes to building a business. Again, like I just said, everybody thinks, well, poof, you're successful and you're an entrepreneur and it's so easy. But what are some lessons or things that you've learned along the way as you transition? So there may be someone who's listening, who's kind of in that same situation. She's, I feel like the school system is changing, how teachers and how things interact. And like you said, all the politics. And so I am seeing, and we've seen the great resignation, right? Where people are pivoting and moving into different businesses. So what are some things that you've learned about that, either that transition or just some lessons you've learned about entrepreneurship that you could share with the listeners?
Well, for a long time, I thought, oh, I don't have a business degree. So I thought I was less than right out of the gate.
Yeah.
And what I have found is that you learn a lot just by trial and error. You learn a lot as you're going along, right? Like if you wait to know all of the things to get started, you're never going to get started.
Yeah.
I always tell people when I went to undergraduate versus graduate school, I learned so much in graduate school. And I truly believe it's because everything I was learning, I was applying right away. And that's what I found with my business, is that you just learn things. This morning, I was troubleshooting how to set up an email flow in Klaviyo. And there is power in Google and YouTube. Like you can learn a lot of things on there or ask. And then I put an SOS out to some business friends and said, okay, friends, how do I do this? And so I think that is a big thing for me, is don't wait until you know all the answers, because you're never going to know all the answers and you're going to just figure it out as you go. If you're passionate about something, you're going to figure it out. As a mom, if my kid has an issue or a problem, I'm passionate about it. I'm going to figure it out. It's the same in my business. So I would say that's a big thing. I tell people, don't wait. I'm in my closet right now. I don't have a professional podcast studio. Don't wait to have all of those things to start, because you can start with a second-hand laptop. You can start with a second-hand Dymo printer and make things happen. And then as you grow, you can change and evolve too.
Right. I love that. I think so many great ideas and ways to help people do just get kind of stuck on a table because people they just put it up there like, well, I'm not ready yet, or I'm not, especially as women. I think we are like, well, I need to learn more, right? I need to get better polished. And I think what people really love right now, and what I love about you and your social platform too, is they just want real and they want relatable. They don't want the polished all together look. At least mompreneur, like we're over that. We want to see someone who's in the trenches and how they're getting through the trenches. And like, I'm normal too. I have like your post, I think it was yesterday, like I have breakdowns too, like we all need to understand that because that gives us the permission to feel okay when we have that moment, and there's no shame in it. We're just so hard on ourselves. So have you invested in help, like either coaching or mentorship, like along your journey? When did you first kind of feel like, okay, now I need to hire a coach or a mentor or maybe an assistant? Can you kind of talk about that? Because I know there's someone who's listening who's like, I'm trying to do it all. And it's really hard to do that. Whether it's from a mentorship, I need more help and accountability or support, or I need someone who's just better skilled at social media to come in and take over that.
Yes, I think for a lot of years, I thought I could do it myself. I call myself a DIYer. This is like the bane of my existence and my motherhood. And the older I've gotten, the more I've gotten wisdom in that we can learn so much from other people. And we do need those other people. For me, owning my own business, I think one of the things I miss most is having accountability, right? When I was in a teacher or when I was an administrative, I had a boss who could guide me and mentor me. We oftentimes look at leadership and bosses as like a negative thing, but I really find that I thrive in accountability. I need somebody to kind of say, hey, have you thought about this? Yeah. And so at the very beginning, I didn't have a lot of money to invest in, but I found podcasts like this that taught me a lot of things. And then I found some more inexpensive coaching opportunities where it was like large group coaching or like a membership program where I could go and I could listen and learn from others. And then as I grew, I could invest more. And yes, I've had a blogging mentor, actually Crystal Payne of the Money Saving Mom used to have that. And she really taught me like logistical things that I hadn't thought about. And then I went through the Product Boss Mastermind, met a great group of women who were very similar. And that's who I was SOSing this morning. Like, how do I do this? I have this great group. We need each other. And I think the more that I know, it seems for me, the biggest thing was like the dollar signs. My revenue, is my revenue going to, and my husband has been so good for me. He goes, you need to bet on yourself. I believe in you. You need to bet on yourself. He goes, I believe that once you invest in this, you're going to see a return on your investment. And it has been true every single time I've invested in myself and in my business. So yes, now I'm looking for it. Like I want accountability. I know that I need that in my business. Yeah. And it takes on different forms over time, right? Like you have one mentor that works you at the space that you're at, and then you elevate to the next level and you need somebody else. And, but I'm always looking for that now. Yeah.
I love that you mentioned your husband, because my husband's kind of similar. Like when we talk about finances and, hiring on help, and he's like, but if you hire this person, because I'm like you, I just see the dollar amount a lot of times. And so y'all have heard me talk about, we have to invest. I truly believe that, but that doesn't mean that it's not scary still to invest when you're seeing the dollar signs. And so he's able to, probably what your husband is able to do, to just say, but if you hire this person and she's able to get you on more podcasts and get you on more stages, it's totally going to pay for itself. You're going to get a return on that investment. But it's nice to have that support system and to have a husband who's supportive in the things that you're doing. So thank you for sharing that, because I definitely can relate to that. But we do need that. Like you said, we need the accountability. We need the help. We need the support. There's too many people out there. Like she mentioned podcasts. I've had some of my best mentorships have been from podcasts, and they're free. Like they're free people. Like just get on and listen while you're doing your laundry, or while you're, I used to put a waterproof speaker in my shower. I'm like, I know I'm taking a shower at least once a day. Some days I may have skipped when my kids were younger, but at least I can listen to something while I'm in the shower or I'm in the car. So there are ways to get the help that you need without spending money, but there's always a time. There will be a time where you'll need to take that scary leap and hire that first person, even if it's part-time.
Yes, I think anytime we level up, like I feel like I've incrementally leveled up, but anytime we do that, when I went from ordering my first 5 meal planners to my first 50 meal planners to like 500 to, every time I do that, it feels so scary. But I have also taught myself that anytime we're growing and stretching, it feels scary to us. And that's a good thing. That fear and that is growing us as a business person. And I think that that's a good thing. So I don't look at it as such a negative anymore. I'm like, okay, I'm growing and I'm stretching, and this is a good thing.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. For sure. Hey, friend. So you have been trying to make some shifts this year. Maybe you set some resolutions and you're just feeling stuck. You don't feel like you're making progress, or you're just not sure what to do. And you've heard me say this before, but being stuck is a mindset, not a position. And this is where a coach comes in to support you. Because here's what I know to be true about you, friend. If you could have done it alone, you would have already done it, period. And as a life coach and a certified PDP professional, I specialize in using a research-based personality and performance survey called the ProScan to illuminate how your unique personality and natural strengths, your work and life environments are influencing real-time performance. So here's what you need to do. Go to the link in the show notes and book your free clarity call to learn more about how I can support you in your goals. I can't wait to illuminate your strengths, cultivate your confidence, and elevate your life. So one of the things I talk about on this podcast a lot is burnout, because I do think it's become kind of an epidemic, and it's almost become an accepted way of life. And was really the catalyst for me starting this podcast is that the mompreneur life can be remixed, right? It doesn't have to be like we see a lot of entrepreneurs just running themselves to the ground. And while I've experienced it too, I'm always love to ask the guests, like, have you experienced burnout before? If you have, how did it show up for you? Because it does show up different for some people. Some people, it's just they lack inspiration, like they just kind of lost that. Some really have some physical things that show up. So have you experienced burnout? And if you have, how did you kind of work your way out of it?
Yes, I think, unfortunately, it is. I think because many of us mompreneurs are achievers. So we achieve at the cost of our own well-being.
Yeah.
I want to go. Like nothing is ever enough, right? I'm always moving the yardstick of success.
Yeah.
But I do think for me, it's both inspiration for sure. And I think also comparison. When I'm burnt out, I'm comparing myself constantly to others. Oh, I'm falling short. That is just a slippery slope that I go down. I think also physically, like I'm not sleeping well at night. I'm crabby and irritable, right? And I think it's because I've gotten on that hamster wheel of nothing ever enough. And so a few things practically that I do is I get up in the morning and the first thing I do, I'm a Christian, so I pray. And when I don't do that, I didn't do that yesterday. And you mentioned I shared on social media, I had a little bit of a breakdown, right? Because it was all feeling like too much.
Yeah.
But I didn't get up. I didn't pray over my day. I didn't walk. I didn't do those things that I know are life-giving to me.
Yeah.
And if I'm not pouring into myself, I cannot pour out as a creative. And so much of what I do online is creative.
Yeah.
And also just really setting boundaries of when I'm going to be online. I take offline every weekend, and that's always hard because I love doing what I do. I love being online, but I know for myself that there has to be times of respite and rest. And like we're leaving on vacation, and honestly, it's hard. This sounds so silly, but I would have like astronomical views next week if I took you all on our European trip. Like it would be amazing, like for engagement, but at the cost of what?
Right.
And my dad, he's a leader in his business, and I have watched him make the mistake of like dying at the altar of his business and not investing in his family. And so I'm very cognizant of like, I have to invest in my family. Like I started this business to be flexible for my family. So if I lose sight of that, then I burn out and my relationship suffer. So I'm going offline next week. I do have some help. And so I told her, I was like, unless the wheels have come off and everything's flaming, don't contact me. It'll be fine. It'll all be there when I get back.
There will be no social media emergencies, right? I was listening to a podcast yesterday, and I was with a company called 31 Gifts for 16 years. I don't know if you're familiar with 31.
Yes.
And we used to always talk about there's no post emergencies, like, set boundaries around when your customers can call you, or your team can call you, and those things. And so I was listening to a podcast yesterday, and they were talking about that. And this CEO owns a dance studio. And she was saying when she was hiring someone to come in and work the office, she was saying, now, if there's an emergency, and the person she was hiring came from a dental office who has had dental emergencies. And she was like, this is a dance studio. Like, what kind of emergency could we possibly have? But we create that mentality for ourselves. Like, we have to be there for our customers 24/7, and we should be responding. People sometimes expect that of us, but we teach people how to treat us as well. We teach social media how to treat us. We teach our customers, our family members, our kids, we teach people, by what we allow And so kudos to you for going and actually enjoying, your vacation instead of trying to capture it. You're going to capture it, but you're going to be living it more. And that is going to bring you so much more fruit for your kids and for your, I'm sure, time with the Lord, and all of that is just going to be it's just going to flourish. And you're going to come back, and guess what? You're going to have all those stories to share. They're not going anywhere. You're going to be able to share them, but you're going to be living in that moment. So I'm super excited for you. That's awesome. That's a big decision, because a lot of entrepreneurs have a hard time with letting that go.
Yeah. I think for me, when you said you're going to live it, I think there's a difference in living it and having my content creator glasses on. And I can see it, right? Yeah. Like I'll be cooking something with my kids. I'm like, oh, this would make a great reel. And then I have to be like, no, this is just for me to enjoy. It hasn't, but it's so easy for us because we love what we do. We love sharing, that it's so easy for us to turn everything into content. And so that's why for me, I have to just cut it all off, because it's a slippery slope. Like, well, if I share this one picture, well, then I could share a couple of stories and then I'll share a link, and and then I need to comment. And I think having, like you said, having those boundaries. And I always tell my community, because we're Simple Purposeful Living, my job is to lead by example. I am never going to ask my communities to do something that I am not willing to do myself first. And so that means setting boundaries and living by them and asking them to do the same.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. So let's shift gears a little bit and kind of share, like, what are some of your tips for simple purposeful living? I know you have some meal planners, that for people, and some other resources, and we'll include all of those in the show notes for people, but just for them to hear your heart and kind of hear some things that you talk about. There's a lot of noise, and there's a lot of things we can get busy with, especially as mompreneurs, moms too. I'm not negating just, I'm not even just, but a mom is very, very busy. So what are some ways that you're helping your community to live a more simple, purposeful life?
I think, first of all, the very first thing I tell my community is you don't have to overhaul your life to love it. So much of what we see online is these overhauls, right? Like we go on HGTV, in 20 minutes, they can completely transform a house, but that is not realistic for an average person. I don't have 20 people in my house cleaning my house and making it look Instagram worthy. Like that's not reality. I don't have the home edit or the resources to have the home edit come in and at color code every single thing. Plus, it's not sustainable in my everyday life. And so really, I'm trying to share simple little tweaks that can transform your life, but don't take much effort. Because when we make a small adjustment, if it doesn't work, then we can just make another small adjustment. I always tell people, like, when you're hanging a picture on the wall and you see it's not quite right, it's just like your life, right? So you just tweak it a little bit to the left. Oh, that's still not quite right. Now we're tweaking it to the right. That's what we're doing with Simple Purposeful Living. We're just making little tweaks, little adjustments, like, oh, my kid can't put his shoes on in time to go out to school. Can I change the time in which he does that to make it more successful for us to get out of the house? It's little things. Like, okay, the other night I shared on social media, when I clean up my kitchen at the end of the day, because it's a kiss to my future morning self. If my kitchen's clean in the morning, it's a blank slate. It helps us get out of the house faster. But then after I clean the kitchen, I light a candle, and that little routine signifies to my soul, okay, now it's time to rest for the rest of the evening. Yeah. It's those little, so that's really the whole premise of Simple Purposeful Living, is simple little things to help us be more purposeful in our one life that we have. And it's really not anything fancy, but it's things that people can implement today. Like some is better than none. That's a big one with my community right now. Like we oftentimes think we have to do everything perfectly, just like being a mompreneur. Like I have to do it all right now. And I find that is the biggest inhibitor for action taking. Like I have to do perfect. I have to be, I started a podcast. The first couple of ones maybe weren't my best, but you know what? I'm going to get better, and some is better than none. And so, I think my heart is just really helping moms to give themselves freedom to live the life that they love. It doesn't have to look like every other Instagram person, but do what works for their family and truly love the season of life they're in right where they're at. Yeah.
Because they're all hard. Like my kids are 15 and 18. So I have one that's getting ready to go off to college. And, I know, I'm like, can't even talk about it. He called me last night. He's in Guatemala right now on a missions trip. And he said, I miss y'all. And I said, I miss you too. And I said, I think the Lord's preparing me for when you leave, because it's really quiet around this house right now. And there's just different seasons of hard, right? That's going to be a hard season. I know, like, my sister-in-law has two that are, 5 and under, and she's like, it's really hard. I'm like, I wish I could tell you it's going to get easier. It doesn't. It's just a different kind of hard. But there are things, like you say, that we can do, those little tweaks just to make it more simple, to drown out the noise. And really, for me, I feel like what I come into contact with some of my clients is they don't even really know what's priority. And if they haven't defined what's priority, then everything's priority. And so, like you said, you're running around like trying to put out fires everywhere, or do the things that maybe you see someone else doing as a mompreneur, when really your kids don't care. They don't care about that. Like, for my kids, my biggest mom guilt was a home cooked meal every single night on the table. That's how I was raised. And I don't know how my mom did it. She worked 9 to 5, and she had amazing meal on the table every single night. And when I sat down and actually had the conversation with my kids, like, what's really important to you, that we're around the table together every night, or that mom cooks that meal every single night? And they just didn't care about the things that the pressure I was putting on myself. So I think finding out what your priorities are, really getting really clear on those for your family and for you and what you need. And then, like you said, making those simple tweaks to make it work for you, and just kind of like put the blinders on to what everyone else is doing.
And I think you hit the nail on the head. Like, simple isn't the end product. The end product is we have more time for what matters. And but in order to have more time for what matters, exactly what you said, you need to know what matters to you. And that looks different for everybody. I think it would be easy if I could say to my community, this is what matters, but that's what matters to me. That might not matter to you. Like, for me, I'm the same. Getting my family around the dinner table is priority for me.
Yeah.
So that's why I meal plan, right?
Yeah.
But my meal plan is very simple. I'm not a gourmet chef, and that's okay, because what matters is getting around the table. So we simplify the process so we can get to what really matters. I think that's really important.
Yeah. Well, I'm definitely going to get on board with your meal plans. I've been watching it forever, and cooking is just not my thing. It's really not. When they do a senior walk at our school, and they go around to the kindergartners, and they let them ask the seniors questions. So they were asking my son, like, what's your favorite meal? I was like, oh my goodness, what is he going to say? Because I don't do a ton of cooking. And he said, like, this new recipe that I just cooked, like maybe the 2 weeks prior. And I thought you would say my spaghetti, because that's the staple in our house. That's my one claim to fame. But I do know there are a lot of mompreneurs that are like, they live on the run with food, right? Like, they're in the drive-throughs because kids have activities. So I love that you have this resource for them to be able to make simple, easy meals for their family throughout the week. Because I'm not a gourmet chef.
It doesn't have to be fancy to feed your family. My grandma and my mom, neither one of themselves would call themselves cooks. But every time we went home to my grandma's house, she made the same meal. Every time we go home to my mom's house, she makes the same meal. And it's comforting to me. I think we have to have all these different recipes and all these different things. But our kids, it's really just this, this one meal that really speaks to us. And if my mom made that one meal for the rest of our lives, when we went home, I'd be a happy camper. So, I always think of it that way. My grandma was kind of my inspiration, because she got it. I feel like those older generations, and maybe it's because they've had the wisdom of life, but she just always knew what mattered. She kept the things that she wasn't good at really simple. She knew, how to love really well. And at the end of the day, those are the things we talk about, at the end of our lives.
Those are the things they're going to remember, right? They're not going to necessarily remember exactly what you cooked every night, but it's just those conversations around the table. So that was definitely something that I wanted to keep going. So how do you stay motivated? Because there are days again, a mompreneur that are listening, there are days where you just don't feel like it, right? So how do you stay motivated to show up as a mom and a wife and a business owner?
I think there's two things, a personal and professional reason. Personal reason is for my family, to show them that hard work pays off, right? Like, I get up and I do the thing, even when you don't feel like it. Cause I think sometimes our kids, they're going to feel that in their life, right? I don't want to go to school, but we do the hard things because they matter and it's going to make a difference. And then professionally, honestly, knowing that I'm helping my community members live their best life. I always tell them I'm not a Star Wars fan, but I'm their Yoda to their Luke Skywalker. Like, I want them to live their best life. And so, like I said earlier, when I get those messages of like this little thing that you shared, or you're in my head, I get that a lot. Like, I heard Erin in my head. honestly, that motivates me to keep sharing because I know that at the end of the day, then I'm helping them live their best life. I'm helping them to create sweet family traditions and connections that are going to last generations. And that is monumental to me because at the end of the day, I want to help people have those family connections. I think in a world today where the culture that's less and less, bringing
Yeah.
families back together is so important.
Yeah. Yeah. I like to call that the paycheck of the heart. My coach said to me years ago, when you get those moments and you know that you're helping other people, like that's the paycheck of the heart. And it's just priceless to know the impact that you're having on your community. So what are you most excited about right now, either in your business or in your family life?
Well, obviously, we're going on a bucket list trip. I went to elementary school in Switzerland. And so I have always wanted to take my kids back to part of where I grew up, let them see my culture and all of those sorts of things. So we get to go do that. My sister lives overseas. So we'll get to see her and just experience Switzerland and Luxembourg with my family. I'm so excited. And then professionally, we started a podcast in May. I really, with the same heart that you have, just extending the conversation we can't have on Instagram or social media, sharing more, being able to serve my community better. And then I wrote a book proposal. One of my dreams as a mompreneur has always been to write a book. And here's some advice. Don't wait until you're ready, right? And so I decided 2023 was the year I was going to write the proposal. And last week I hired a literary agent. And so we're going to start pitching publishing houses in September. And that's really exciting. It's just kind of a dream come true, but also just goes to show you, like, go and do the thing. You don't have to do it perfectly. I hired a writing coach to help me, that accountability, got some people in my corner to kind of help me out. And I'm just really excited. And I think it'll be another way that I can hand to my community to say, okay, these are the things that I think simple, purposeful living encompasses.
Yeah. Well, congratulations. That's so exciting. I know that's a big step and there's a lot involved with it. I have several friends that are authors, or one that's launching a book next week. She helps mompreneurs with anxiety, and she has anxiety elephants, like a devotional. And then she has a picture book that she's getting ready to launch. So if you need some other support, I'm happy to connect y'all. I think you would love her. But that's a big deal and that's exciting. I have a book. I don't have a book, but I want to do a book at some point. So maybe I'll start working on that. You're inspiring me. You're inspiring me.
I always say if, we use our time for the things that matter. And I was kind of feeling a little bit of like conviction there. Like if I really want to write a book, then I got to make it happen. I'm the only one that can prioritize my time to do that. So, and I just really spent, a little bit of time every single week to make that happen. But I always say, don't wait till you're ready.
No.
And no, I think the other thing I would tell people, not that you asked, but the last thing I was thinking about was for the longest time as a mompreneur, I wanted other people to validate my dream. I wanted my family members and friends to understand, like, I had this vision. And they know you. It's kind of like Jesus from Nazareth. Like the people from Nazareth are like, okay, whatever.
Right.
But like, I wanted them to believe in my dream to make it valid. And what I had to realize is I had to go after that dream and they would catch up. Or maybe they wouldn't, but that's not really my problem. Like God placed this on my heart. I'm going to go chase it and not worry so much about what other people think.
Well, and you've probably heard this quote before, people are not going to understand your calling because it wasn't a conference call. God called you to it, and so they're not going to understand your grind because God didn't give them the vision for it. So I think it's hard because you want everybody to kind of be supportive. And some people may think that's crazy. You're going to do what? Like when I left 31 after 16 years, this last couple of years, people were like, you're doing what? And people didn't understand, but I clearly heard from God that he wanted me to move on to do some other things. So kudos to you for listening to that call and doing the work that you're doing. You're doing amazing work to help mompreneurs. So thank you for coming on today. And I was going to ask you if you could say one thing to the mompreneurs, what would you say? And you just said it. So I don't even have to ask you that anymore. But I would love to know, just rapid fire, like what's your favorite book that you're reading right now or that you've ever read?
Oh, I think Atomic Habits is a really good one. I love that one. Of course, my Bible.
Yeah.
That's like the token answer. I did read The Time-Saving Mom, and I'm hoping to read I think it's called The Life Council, 10 Women You Need in Your Life, about friendship.
That sounds really good.
As mompreneurs, that can be one of the things that we can let go. And I think friendship and community is so essential for us women.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite app or resource that you're using right now for your business?
I couldn't live without Canva for all my graphics. And then I use Rank IQ to help optimize my blog posts. I would recommend that. And then, of course, AI. I use AI as a generator for what are things that my community wants to talk to me about. Because at the end of the day, I can share what I think they want, but that kind of helps me like, okay, these are what busy moms need right now. So that's been really helpful.
Yeah. It's amazing, isn't it?
Yes.
It's kind of freaky at the same time, but it does help. It doesn't replace human connection or human writing, but it does help you to kind of get your mindset and your creativity flowing. For those, I'm not as creative. That's not a strong suit of mine. So I love it for that, just to kind of help me get started.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
This was awesome. Tell them how they can connect with you. What's the best way for them to connect with you?
So you can find me on Instagram at Simple Purposeful Living and on my website, simplepurposefulliving.com. And you can find all of our paper print products that help you support a simple and purposeful life at shop.simplepurposefulliving.com.
Awesome. We'll put all that in the show notes for y'all. Thank you, Erin, so much for coming on. This was awesome. Have a great trip. And I look forward to that book.
Yes, hopefully, the thing about books is they take 1,000 years. So I said, well, in 2025, it'll probably be launched, but it'll be worth it. And I hope, again, that this encouraged people today that you aren't alone and there are ups and downs. Like you said, you don't own a business, you own a roller coaster. And that couldn't be any more true. Yesterday I was at the bottom. Today, doing this podcast, I'm at a high. So I'm going to let this carry me through as I figure out my next step with this stinking email flow.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. Well, friends, we'll put all the things, links to her resources, the podcast, her website, everything in the show notes for you. I'll catch you on the next episode, and I'm believing in you always. Well, that's a wrap, friends, for this week's episode of the Mompreneur Life Remixed podcast. Thank you so much for listening and for following the show. It means so much to me. And listen, friend, sharing is caring. So if you loved this episode and thought of some fellow mompreneurs who could benefit, send them the link. Share this episode or take a screenshot and head on over to Instagram and share and tag me at Martine31Williams. We are connected on Instagram, right? It's where you will get all the fun behind the scenes of my life and business as a mompreneur. Until next time, know that I am believing in you always.